My name is Bree Podgorski, and I am the Athlete Engagement Senior Coordinator with Move United, formerly Disabled Sports USA. We would like to thank the Bob Woodruff Foundation for their longstanding commitment and support, allowing us to bring you this virtual opportunity. Before turning the show over to our speakers today, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. All attendees will be on mute to minimize distractions, and please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to submit questions rather than the chat. Feel free to use the chat function to introduce yourselves. Just be sure to set your message to send to both panelists and attendees. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our presenter today, Karalyn Stott.
Hi, Bree. Thank you for that introduction and welcome, everyone. We are here to talk about the USA Wheelchair Football League, which is a brand new sport league that we've started here over at Move United. And I'm going to start with a short video. I've been told that it might be a little loud on your end, so I do apologize. Just maybe turn down the speakers a little bit and then we'll turn it back up once the video is over. It's only about 45 seconds.
My name is Brad Lang, and I'm a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I've loved football since I was a kid. There is nothing like it. The adrenaline, the camaraderie. I felt like I was part of something bigger than myself, just like when I joined the Marine Corps. In 2011, I lost both my legs disarming IEDs under heavy enemy fire in Afghanistan. Returning home, I found a sense of belonging playing football again. The motivation, determination, and discipline is why I played then, and it's why I play now.
So some of you might recognize Brad and his son. They were actually lucky enough to get to participate in the NFL draft broadcast this a couple of weeks back to help sort of announce the USA Wheelchair Football League to the general public. So my name again is Karalyn Stott. I have about a decade's worth of adaptive sports experience, and I am sort of self-nominating, calling myself the commissioner of this USA Wheelchair Football League. You know, if you have any questions, any concerns about the league, I'm going to be sort of your primary point of contact. And I just am a lifelong football fan. Most of my earliest memories involve attending Iowa Hawkeye games with my family. And so the Big Ten really just has a special place in my heart, and football does as well. So I'm really excited to be talking about this initiative with you all. So the USA Wheelchair Football League is a competitive sports league for athletes with disabilities to play football in a fast-paced, energetic, team-based environment. We started working on this initiative last fall, and COVID-19 willing, we will be playing our first year this fall. So we're starting with 4 teams: Ability 360 out of Phoenix, Angel City Sports out of LA, Great Lakes Adaptive Sports Association out of Chicago, and Midwest Adaptive Sports out of Kansas City. It is our goal to expand that league quite exponentially, and there's a lot of people on this call, so we're hoping that a lot of you are interested in starting a program and joining the league. But we really wanted to kind of start small so that we could test out a lot of the rules that we put into place, so that we could sort of show proof of concept of this league, and really just sort of work the kinks out. This league started as a partnership with the Bob Woodruff Foundation and the NFL. And so a lot of the rules and things that you're going to see are really influenced by that partnership. That's kind of the reason that we've created this really high energy, fast-paced league. It's really intended to sort of mirror the game that you're used to seeing on Sundays in the NFL. And then USA Football was really integral in helping us create some of these rules. So we really worked to use all of the resources at our disposal to create this league. The league currently is open to adults, so you have to be over 18 or 18 and over by the time the season starts, and that's in August. And then you have to have a qualifying disability. And that right now we're using the NWBA classification systems, the National Wheelchair Basketball Association's classification. It is our goal long-term to create our own classification system, but for year 1, we're borrowing their system. And again, I should stress that what we're talking about today is really the rules for our USA Wheelchair Football League. There are ways to play wheelchair football that don't necessarily follow some of these structures, and I'm happy to talk about that offline, but this is really focused on our league, our rules, our setup. Some of the key rule changes that you're going to see in our game. The first one is the field surface and dimensions. So obviously our athletes can't play on turf. So the biggest thing is that it has to be a flat surface. So that could be indoor or outdoor. It is a pretty large field, so it's 60 yards long, not 100 yards long like you might be used to. So 60 yards plus 2 8-yard end zones equals 76 yards. So that's basically 2 basketball courts or maybe just a large parking lot. Teams are made up of 7 players. And the line to gain in our game is set at 15-yard increments. So you might be used to, the line to gain changing. So if the ball was down at the 3-yard line, then you would have to go to the 13. For us, if it's down at the 3, you still go to the 15. If it's down at the 10, you go to the 15. You still have 4 downs to make that line to gain. So there's 15, then the midfield line, then 15 again, and then your end zone. A tackle in our game is 1 hand above the waist. So that's just for safety's sake. We don't want to be, pushing people out of chairs and onto the ground. So 1 hand above the waist is a tackle. The point after touchdown, because we can't have kicking motions, our chairs don't allow for that. We don't have the field goal option for the point after for the touchdown. But we do still have a 1-point and a 2-point option. So after someone has scored their 6-point touchdown, they will, the offense will line up at the 3-yard line, and they'll get 1 point for a pass play into the end zone, and then 2 points for a run play into the end zone. We do use a running game clock. So, once the ball is kicked off to start the quarter, it is a running game clock. So it doesn't stop unless there's a timeout or like an injury timeout or anything like that. But there is still sort of the 2-minute drill option. So at the end of the second quarter and the end of the fourth quarter, we will have 2-minute drill timing, similar to the NFL. So it'll stop on an incomplete pass, first down, all of that stuff. For safety's sake, in our game, fumbles are generally a dead ball situation, and that's because we don't want to have a player sort of reaching down, looking at the ground, trying to pick up a ball, and someone to come, smashing into them in their chair. So fumbles are generally a dead ball situation. That is only changed if in long yardage situations. So on a kickoff or on a punt, players do have the option of recovering a fumble. And then the other big rule change is that everyone in our game is an eligible receiver. So you don't have to be wearing a certain jersey number or declare yourself to the referees. Every single person on the field is an eligible receiver. So you'll see that a lot of these rules are really intended to create that high intensity, fast pace. So that's why we have sort of the shorter field, the running game clock. We want to really create an action-packed game for the athletes as well as, anyone watching it. Other than that, basically the rules stay the same as, American football that you're used to. So, almost all of the penalties remain in place. Some of the yardage penalties have just been shortened a little bit because of the shortened field. And you can find the full rule book on our website, and that is usawfl.org. So that stands for USA Wheelchair Football League. For those people that are interested in joining the league as a new team, there are some things that you're going to have to commit to doing. And the first and foremost is that you're going to have to commit to training your coaches. So we're going to request that all coaches complete a league-approved training. For this summer, we were hoping to do that training as part of this in-person conference, but unfortunately that wasn't able to happen. So we will be doing a virtual training this summer. And everyone that's on this call will get information about that once we have the dates for that. We also are going to ask that teams put in place a safe sport training or some form of training to make sure that you're following along with the protocol that we have in place as Move United. We also request that you have appropriate insurance coverage for your team. Again, this is a Move United policy. We want to make sure that you're just covered by general liability insurance just in case something were to happen. You will have to commit to providing safe sport-specific equipment for your team. That means ensuring that athletes have availability to the appropriate wheelchairs. And something that I didn't mention, I guess, that's probably important, the wheelchairs are basically your standard sport chair. We do recommend that you get one that has a frame that's more reinforced because they're going to take a few more hits, but it is sort of a standard sport chair. So making sure your athletes have the appropriate wheelchairs, having helmets. Helmets are required for players in the league, and any other safety equipment that they need. We're going to need you to show proof of athlete interest. So when you're applying to become a team, we want you to either have created a survey of your current participants, asking them, if they're interested and making sure that you have enough people, or hosting an intro clinic beforehand, hosting meetings, whatever it's going to do to prove that you have enough athletes interested. And that's really that we, don't want you putting the cart before the horse and sort of applying to be a program and then having to drag people along to come in and play. We want to just make sure that this is, a good experience for you, a good experience for us, a good experience for your athletes. And then finally, agreeing to provide season-long practice sessions. So the season runs from August through October, and we will sort of ask that you have a plan in place for practices. So, a venue picked out, coaches, how you're going to run those. And it doesn't have to be super detailed. We just, again, want to make sure that if we are directing athletes your way, that you have at least thought through kind of some of the basics of this program. And all of these really are, our goal is to make sure that, if you're joining this league, that you're in it for the long haul. In addition to sort of the rules looking like the NFL, we want this to be a little bit like the NFL in that, the Chicago Bears have been in Chicago for 100-some years and they're going to be there next season. We want to, know that you guys are committed and interested in playing for the foreseeable future. So how can we help in this process? Last year, we provided a good number of funds to assist with purchasing equipment, paying for practice space, and kind of helping out with those 4 teams. We do anticipate that we will be able to assist with funding for some of the teams in the future. I do want to note a few things on funding and then just let you know that I don't want to spend a lot of time in this presentation on that because funding questions are very specific to programs, and so it's probably better to set up a call time with me and discuss that afterwards. But a few key things to note is that a lot of this funding does come from specific grantors, and so there are requirements involved with that. This year it was about veteran participation, and so teams had to commit to that. They've had to commit to providing me with sort of bi-monthly reports. So there is a lot of sort of Move United involvement in that funding if that's something we are able to provide. Also, as I said, we started with 4 teams. If, I think we have 200 plus people on this call. If all of you want to start a team, we unfortunately, aren't going to be able to provide large levels of funding for 200 teams, but, that's just sort of, we do expect that there will be funding available, and we do hope to be able to provide that. The third and most important thing is that our funding has been and will continue to be prioritized for Move United member network organizations. Secondly, we are happy to help connect your team to coaches and athletes to help lead clinics and trainings. So we are in the process of doing a lot of that training, and we're happy to sort of connect you to the right people if you just want to host an intro clinic. And then I'm always here to answer your questions. I work full-time on this USA Wheelchair Football League, and so I'm happy to help you and answer any questions that you might have. At this point, I do want to open it up for questions and answers. We've got about 15 minutes for that. So if you have questions, I'm already seeing quite a few in the Q&A here, so I'm gonna just pick a few. Um, So the first question I have is the classification is the same criteria as in basketball, and that is correct. So for year one, athletes playing in this league, the answer or the classification is the same as wheelchair basketball. Again, we are hoping to develop our own classification system, but for year one, that's what it will be. Gary Herman asked, do you anticipate developing a junior division in the future? That's a great question, and the answer is yes. So we, as I said, are starting this in year one with 4 teams, and we're starting with adults, but we are really hoping to expand this to a larger population, and that includes a junior division. I'll be honest in saying I don't think it's going to happen in year 2 or 3, but it is something that we're really interested in. Sorry, when I scroll, it kind of. So how does the kickoff happen? Oh, that's a great question. Kickoff looks like a pass. So it's a really long pass. And that's true of the punt as well. So the other sort of big thing is that when we are punting the ball, you have to declare that, because otherwise it's going to kind of just look like you're passing it. So either you go for it on 4th down or you have to punt, no field goals. Someone has a question on how much travel commitment will there be? The main concern is travel costs. That is completely understandable. So obviously with there only being 4 teams right now, they're all going to have to kind of travel for tournaments. It is, again, our long-term goal to have a lot more teams, and so hopefully you would be able to participate in more local regional tournaments. And then, you know, if you won those, you know, hopefully you would move on to sort of nationals. But right now, you know, there is a bit of travel commitment involved if you're interested in playing.
Hey, Karalyn, we had a question come through the chat box. I think is a good question for the whole group. Someone asked if organizations who are not membership organizations of Move United are able to join the league, or what that looks like.
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now we're prioritizing new teams to Move United members. And I would encourage you to look at our Move United membership levels and see if there's one that fits your organization. But I'd love to chat with everyone offline, because we aren't going to limit it to that. But right now, that's sort of our priority. Sorry, just looking at the questions. Someone asked if there's a certain type of helmet that needs to be used, and yes, it's a traditional standard football helmet. We will make potential exceptions based on, you know, if someone's disability doesn't allow for that, but that would need to be sort of in writing. We need to have some conversations about that. Someone asked, what do you envision for competitions, location, number of games, etc.? So that's a great question. And it's going to really depend on kind of how many teams we end up with. So as I mentioned, the season is August through October. For this first season, because there's only 4 teams, we don't need a large number of tournaments. So we're just hosting 2 tournaments. One August 22nd and 23rd, and the other one the first weekend in October, I believe. And so all of the teams will sort of travel to both of those tournaments. But as I said, we're really looking to create sort of a larger national network. And so it would be sort of smaller regional tournaments that would grow into, you know, maybe like a Texas tournament that would grow into like a Southwest regional. If you won your initial tournament, that would go into sort of nationals would be the long-term goal for that. Do we use a standard football? Yes, so we are using the NFL size standard football is the goal for this league. Someone asked if there's an opportunity for power wheelchair users to participate. So as I said, because of some of the involvement of the NFL and kind of some of the things that we were coming together, players in this league have to use a manual wheelchair and have to be able to push themselves in that chair. Again, that doesn't mean that if you want to create sort of a more recreational program at your chapter that you wouldn't be able to do that and include power wheelchair users. That's just sort of the rules for our competitive league. Someone asked if there are special fields or can you adapt any field or court. There's not a special field. You can use any sort of sports court or any form of outdoor parking lot. You just need to make sure that it's flat, level, doesn't have any like cracks or bumps if you're using an outdoor surface, because players are going to be traveling pretty fast. So you don't want to have like a crack in the sidewalk that their chair could hit and they could go flying out of. So how many games are in a season? We kind of already answered that. Sorry, there's a lot of questions coming in. Based on using the classification from wheelchair basketball, would someone be unable to participate if they are not eligible for basketball? So again, for season 1, that's going to be the case. But as I've mentioned, we're really looking at creating our own system that uses a lot of the functionalities of football. So the wheelchair basketball is a functional classification system based on the movements required for basketball, and we really want to create one that's for the movements required for football. Will the games be broadcast so others can watch? That is a question I've had a lot. We are looking into possibly doing something on the Move United YouTube page. While we are affiliated with the NFL a little bit, we unfortunately don't have any TV contracts at this point, but here's hoping. Who will be serving as officials and what is that training going to look like? That is a fantastic question. So right now, the 4 teams are working on creating their small bank of officials, and we will be doing a virtual training this summer for them, and then hosting in-person training at our first tournament. And so if anyone is interested in officiating, please feel free to get in contact with me after this session, and I will make sure that you are kept up to date on any of those officiatings. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through questions here. I think I've answered a lot of these. Something that what is the cutoff date to apply as a league, and how long does the decision process take on hearing back? That's a great question. So what is the cutoff date on applying, and how long does it take to hear back? So right now, things, as you probably know, are a little bit uncertain given a lot of the COVID-19 situation. But the plan every year is to open up applications towards the middle of fall, and then to announce all of the teams for the following year in December. So you'll have a few weeks to apply, and then we'll sort of review all of those, and then you'll know before January 1st if you're going to be playing in that calendar year. Will officials be limited to individuals in wheelchairs? Nope. So officials can be stand-up officials or those playing in chairs. Is there going to be a senior division in the future? I have a lot of seniors out here in Colorado. That's definitely something that we can take into consideration. So right now, the league does not have an upper age limit. I understand that there might, be some people who might not want to play with an 18-year-old if you're, I'm in my 30s and I don't know if I'd want to do it. So it's definitely something we can look into. Jamie is asking where the 2 scheduled tournaments will be held. Jamie, that is a great question. We were hoping to sort of have all of that solidified, but then as you can imagine, COVID-19 happened, and a lot of the places are sort of hesitant to sign any contracts. So it will be in one of the 4 cities that we have teams. So either Chicago, LA, Phoenix, or Kansas City. I think we only have about 5 more minutes left. Is that correct, Bree?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, about 5 more minutes.
All right. So is there any other last questions that anyone wants to throw out at me while we're waiting? Otherwise, I do have a couple more slides which do kind of go through sort of the general, sorry, get back to my, so this is sort of what a general first year timeline for a team is going to look like. So you would confirm your coaching staff in January, create all your recruitment materials in February, kind of order all your equipment in March, start hosting your team tryouts in April, and then start practicing in June. July, have your travel roster finalized. August, we're going to start play. October, play ends, and then you'll submit your postseason feedback to us and then reapply for the next year. And then I'm going to leave my contact information up here for a little bit while I see if there's just any final questions. Otherwise, I'll let you guys go a couple of minutes early.
Well, thank you so much, Karalyn, for all that information. I know that people have been having a lot of questions since the launch, so this is a good way for us to compile those questions and get back to people with some answers on that.
Yeah, and as I said, you know, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer sort of individualized program questions. I know a lot of things are very specific to your organization, so please don't hesitate to contact me.
All right, everybody. Just a reminder to fill out the event session survey. I put it in the chat box, but it should also come up when we close out of this session. And thank you all for joining us. Thanks, Karalyn.
Thank you.